date night. It is date night.
It's a standalone date night.
Yeah.
In its own podcast, for once.
I'm kind of thinking that we've done a full podcast and now we're into date night again, because that's what we used to do.
Yeah.
But that is not the truth.
No.
We have come to do date night as a separate thing.
And it's my turn?
It is your turn. I didn't know that. I'm just saying yes, Mark.
Yes, because you made me watch Robin Hood last week.
Yes, that's true.
This is a better film than Robin Hood that we're watching tonight.
Some might say.
Well, we'll see afterwards, yeah?
Go on then.
So we are going to watch... I hope you've not seen this. Otherwise we'll be recording again.
Go on.
1963's Charade.
Oh, no, I haven't. That is not what I thought you would pick. Is it a musical?
No.
Oh,
no.
Okay.
Do you know anything about this film?
Clearly
By the fact
not.
you've asked if it's a musical, probably not.
Clearly not. Maybe I'm thinking of Carousel.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's not one of your weird...
No. This is... No.
You've been watching some weird ones recently.
This has recognisable actors in. It's well thought of. I don't think it's currently in the IMDb top 250, but it has been in the past.
Okay.
And if anyone wants to watch along with this, for reasons we will discuss afterwards, this is available in full for free on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Okay.
My eyes are darting around the room and I'm not quite sure why.
Okay.
I'm sort of like, why do I not know anything about this? But I think 60s are a real... There's like a great big... what's the word when something's really missing? Something's really missing.
Blind spot.
That's it. The 60s are my blind spot. 70s, fine. Godfather. 80s, great. Back to the Future.
50s?
No.
No, anything pre-70s then.
Yeah, right. Well, I've got nothing to add because I can't tell you who's in it or who I even think's in it. I thought it was a musical. Who knows what it's about?
Okay. I think this ticks a lot of your boxes. So,
okay.
Yeah, so let's go watch it.
Let's go watch it.
Each other?
Why do you think we're going to?
I don't know. How would I know?
Because I already know an awful lot of people, and until one of them dies, I couldn't possibly meet anyone else.
Well, if anyone goes on the critical list, let me know.
As you can see, she was in serious trouble. But she still found time to enjoy herself.
Mrs. Lambert, any morning now you could wake up dead.
Of course, she never had as much fun as her husband. Now, he knew how to relax. You see, it all began when he got off the train. Now, there's a relaxed husband.
Police probably think I killed him.
Instant divorce, you mean?
From then on, her life was one round of enjoyment. Entertainment. Enchantment?
What are you doing in here?
I'm having a nervous breakdown.
But her life wasn't always that gay. There were times when she was in dire jeopardy. Hasn't it occurred to you that I'm having a tough time keeping my hands off you? Oh, you should see your face.
What's the matter with it?
It's lovely.
When we played our charade, we were like children posing, playing a game.
Not a musical then.
Not a musical.
I wonder why I thought that. I wonder whether like 60s charade, you know, it sounds a bit throwaway. It sounds, I'm waving my hands around, which is really helpful for a podcast. But you know, it sounds a bit like da 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 da. I don't know what that song was, but
Da, 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 da.
who wants a charade? Who wants a charade? No. And the other thing that I was singing all the way through it which has a musical link to it, is there's a song that Maxwell Caulfield sings in Grease 2, which is also called Charade. It's terrible, and it's when he's
I think describing a song from Grease 2 as terrible is somewhat redundant.
But it is. It's a bit like, do you remember the other day when we were watching Robin Hood and you really hated what you called the Katie Melua song?
Yes.
In the middle, that was all about love, and it was all a bit soft focus. It's the same in Grease 2. Anyway, back to Charade.
Back to Charade.
That's amazing that I didn't know anything about that film whatsoever.
So, should we go into why you didn't know anything about that film?
Yeah, and should we do spoilers first as well? So
Yeah.
spoilers for Charade, 1963. Okay.
The second this film was released, on its first ever showing, it immediately went into the public domain. Because during the title credits, where they have the little disclaimer and the MCXXIII, as it would be.
Like the year?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
There is neither a copyright symbol or the word copyright, which under US law at the time meant the copyright was completely invalid.
Wow.
So Universal Pictures, who own this, in America at least, you can just go out and release a DVD of this.
Wow, that is amazing.
So, yeah, so it's not
So you can
promoted.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's why it's on YouTube so many times, of various different quality.
So many different versions of it.
Yeah.
And they're not getting taken down
Yeah.
because
No one owns the copyright of it.
How interesting.
Yeah, so I don't think it's really promoted. I don't think it's necessarily like it has been on TV. I've seen it on TV, but yeah, just it's one of them films that no one talks about. Considering the cast and considering the director behind it, yeah.
So how do you know about it then?
So I know about it because when I first started getting into films, it was I was getting a lot of my film recommendations from podcasts. Lost podcasts at the time, as it were. So, and two different ones both recommended this as like being a really good film.
Because of the twists and turns, the same as
Well,
Lost?
I think it's just not necessarily. There wasn't even tying it to Lost. I think it was more just when Lost was off, they used to go through like their favourite films and stuff like that. To like one was called Make Your Own Kind of Music with Scott and Steve, and one was called The Dalmalars, and during the off seasons, they both went into like doing their favourite films, and this came up on both of them. So I'm like, I've never heard of that. I'll check it out. I rented a DVD that was awful quality because it just was one of the dodgy ones that was released. I must have rented it again because I think it was so bad that I didn't watch it and returned it, and I might have found it online or somewhere like that. 'Cause it was just at no, we'd have had a broadband by then. Yeah. And then I've seen it so many times. I love this.
It's right up your street.
Yes. So what did you think of it?
So for the first sort of, I can't really remember the timing. I was surprised when I Need to Go to the Loo, you said there was 20 minutes left, because I felt there was surely there was only 5 minutes left of the film, and I couldn't really keep an eye on. I had a can of Diet Coke in front of the clock, so I couldn't quite see what time we were on. But I think maybe up until sort of halfway, or maybe just before that, I was getting a bit it was a bit too rom-com for me.
Yeah.
And that first section where Audrey Hepburn meets this guy, and I'm just going to call him the guy, because obviously he changes personalities all the way through.
We should mention to people who haven't seen this stars Audrey Hepburn and Cary Grant.
Yeah, so Audrey Hepburn and Cary Grant are having a lovely time being flirtatious. And that was fine, but the reason I say I can see why you like this is it really reminded me of the satires that we now have of these sorts of spy dramas, of these types of thrillers, romances from this era. The cadence, the way everyone speaks, it's I'm going to say a line because you're going to say a line back to me.
Yes.
Do you know, it's that da 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 da, and no one speaks in the way that anyone actually would. Everyone's being very witty, and normally I love that sort of Noel Coward. Like I really love. I've been to the theatre to see a lot of Noel Coward.
Yeah.
I like a lot of Oscar Wilde. I like the snappiness of dialogue, but when you have seen that taken off so many times, and then you go back to the original films, sometimes I think I'm so far into the modern day, when things happen on the original, it just seems a bit cheesy to me. It doesn't quite work. Whereas if I'd seen this film before I'd seen every single film that's then taken the mickey out of it, satirised it, I probably wouldn't be so like, oh, right, I've seen this before. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this film is part whodunit. I think it's part spy thriller, and it's part screwball comedy. And I don't think the screwball comedy necessarily holds up. Cary Grant is very charismatic, and I'm sure in 1963, him taking a shower with his suit on would have been hilarious. But to me, coincidentally, having seen this with with like a commentary, and it would have been director's commentary, he did that because there was a need for him to have a shower, but he was so old at this point that he felt he was out of shape and didn't want to be seen with his top off.
And we're all been there.
Yeah.
Yeah, those sort of bits just didn't quite work for me, but it's not necessarily the film's fault. That's just not something that I particularly take to. But when we got into the thriller element, when we got into the spy, when we got into those twists and turns, that's when it really got me. That's when I thought, wow, all of my sort of inclinations to look at my phone just went out of the window, and I thought, this is brilliant. I hadn't got a clue what was happening. It kept me thinking the whole way through.
I think from the moment Cary Grant goes through the window and you find out that he is at least in some part in leagues with the three bad guys, played by James Coburn, wearing an amazing corduroy suit, George Kennedy making his second appearance at Date Night.
What's he in?
he's the partner in The Naked Gun.
Of course he is. And maybe that's where I'm thinking about, because I was thinking about Top Secret, I was thinking about Naked Gun and Airplane, because they use that type of speech. That's one-liners all the time, which it was quite a way through there.
And then Ned Glass, who you might know, he plays Doc in West Side Story.
Oh, yes, I do know him then.
Which was released 2 years before this. So,
yes, I do. Oh, that's what, brilliant, all three of them, three very different bad guys.
But yeah, I think the second half of this, it is just plot twist after plot twist after plot twist after plot twist. And I think if you can get through the first maybe half hour of this, just go go with it.
Yeah, I agree.
And,
I agree. I love the fact I had to think all the time. And I think at one point you said to me, do you know what's happening? And I could have given a guess.
Yeah.
But it was wrong every time.
Yeah.
I was absolutely convinced that Audrey Hepburn knew what was happening, that she was in cahoots with her husband, who had then died.
Yeah.
And she knew where the money was, and she was taking Cary Grant for a ride. I was slightly disappointed that wasn't the case. I know we're jumping right forward to the end.
Yeah.
But I was disappointed that when the game is up, we know where the money is. The money's in the stamps that the husband has bought. So there's these very, very rare stamps.
Yes.
And everyone's been saying, where's the money? Where's the money? And it's been there all the time in the hand. That she hadn't worked that out ages ago, and I wanted her to get one up on all the men.
So I think the thing is, if you find out at the end she's been in on it all along, that then doesn't make sense of some of her actions earlier on in the film.
Okay.
And one thing about this film is, if you go back and watch it, it all makes sense.
Okay.
When you walk in to meet Walter Matthau's character, and his secretary is on lunch at the time, he could have just walked into that room. Everything ties up together, and it almost gets better with a second viewing.
Yeah, I can imagine
like
that.
Tenet, maybe.
Yeah, I really can imagine that. I mean, unlike Tenet, I could at least follow where each of the twists were going. Should we talk about sort of the plot generally? So just in case anyone hasn't watched it and isn't going to watch it, just to sort of give context to what we're saying.
So Audrey Hepburn is in the process of divorcing her husband, Charlie. And
they live in Paris. Beautiful Paris. And
whilst on ski holiday, she meets Cary Grant, the person. Who they have a little flirt. She goes home to find that her flat, beautiful Paris flat,
Yeah.
has been completely stripped bare. She goes through all her cupboards, checking that her Givenchy clothes are still there. And
We'll
they are
come
not.
back to that.
Yeah, we'll come back to that. She then gets a phone call from...
From Cary Grant.
Cary Grant comes to her flat,
Yes.
having read about... Because
Yes, we've
Yes.
missed out a bit.
Yeah, missed out a
The
bit.
husband's dead.
Yeah, husband's
So,
dead.
Charles is dead. We
Been
find
thrown
out.
off a train.
Yeah, he's been thrown off a train. French policeman sort of says, "Look, he's got all these passports. He's got all this stuff in a bag.
Yeah.
But he's now dead." And it comes out. I can't even remember how, but it comes out that he was part of a team of people during the war that was meant to be delivering some gold.
Yes.
To
the French resistance.
To the French resistance, but actually they stole it, but nobody really knows where it is. So you've got the bad guys that were involved in that plot, and her husband was one of them, and he's now deceased. And they think she knows where the money is.
Yeah. What do you make of the chemistry between Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn?
I thought it was really good, but I was a little bit put off by the fact that they kept talking about how much older he was than her. See, as an young person now,
Yeah.
kind of.
No, we're not.
You, do you know what I mean? Like, looking back, like, I've always thought of Audrey Hepburn, not necessarily as a young person. I've always thought of her as an older lady, mainly because my main knowledge of Audrey Hepburn is a bit of My Fair Lady, which, fair enough, you know, back in, I think, 64.
Yeah, it's the year after this. Interestingly, Cary Grant makes a reference to the street where you live during this.
Does, and I was thinking, they must be having tongue in cheek with that, but maybe
She probably had just been cast at this point. It would certainly be close, if not, but yeah.
But I know her mainly from Robin and Marion,
Oh my god.
which is, I think that might be 70-something, late 70s.
Yes.
So yeah, that's mainly how I know her, dressed in like a veil because she becomes a nun as Maid Marian. I always love an excuse to talk about Robin Hood. But yeah, that's mainly how I know her as an older woman. So when he's talking about her being so much younger, he calls her a girl.
Yeah.
That didn't quite work for me. But then I was thinking, well, is that right?
Right. So this is part of the thing that people talk about with this film. So Cary Grant during this film turned 59.
Okay.
And Audrey Hepburn is 33.
Okay.
So it is the equivalent of, I've looked this up in preparation, it's the equivalent of George Clooney, who is 59 now, dating Blake Lively.
Right. Okay.
Which isn't necessarily... there is a big age difference there,
Yeah,
but George
but-
Clooney is George Clooney, it's Cary Grant, you know.
And you know what? In today's films,
Yeah.
we see this all the time.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily a good look, but we do see this.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two things about this. One, this is 10 years after Roman Holiday, which is obviously the big breakthrough for Audrey Hepburn, and people had been trying to get Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn in a film together ever since then. I did the maths backwards. Mark Wahlberg and Matt Damon are
You've really
49.
been thinking about this.
Yeah, because I knew this had come up.
Okay, so they're 49.
9 now. That is the equivalent of them being cast in a film opposite Zendaya, which is a lot more creepy.
That doesn't quite work as well.
And Cary Grant definitely was reluctant to do a film with her for that reason. But with them both aging 10 years, he was still uncomfortable, and he actually had it written into the script that she was pursuing him rather than the other way around.
Fair enough. Yeah.
But yeah, that's why the reason that it took them 10 years from them to
And
star
they
in a
do
film together.
acknowledge it. So
Yeah.
I prefer that it is acknowledged.
Yes.
And he's a little bit like, you know, he at no point in time do you feel that he's creepy.
No.
At any point, I mean, he really is resisting, and he's not even going, "Oh, I'm resisting." He's
Yeah.
like going, "Cut it out,
Yeah.
cut it out. You're too young for me," sort of thing. But yeah, I didn't find it. That's why I thought it was so weird when they were talking about it. I didn't find it particularly creepy at all. But maybe that's because it is from her perspective.
Yeah. And he's Cary Grant, so who's going to resist him?
He does look a lot older in this, I have to say. Like, I don't know, I'm not very good at the golden age of Hollywood at all. I know very, very little about it. It's not particularly of interest to me. I know some people absolutely love that era, but I much prefer my 80s, my 90s. So, but even having said that, I know that Cary Grant's meant to look a little bit sharper than this.
Yes.
And he does look like he's seen a life.
We're 25 years on from Bringing Up Baby, which is obviously the breakthrough film. He did Bringing Up Baby, His Girl Friday, and The Philadelphia Story within 2 years of each other when he was sort of mid. That'd be 25 years before. So yeah, probably similar to George Clooney with his career, and I guess if it probably easier. It's easier casting someone who someone who you've seen going through as a heartthrob than just casting an unknown 60-year-old. It's a bit different.
I thought they worked really well together. They're essentially in every scene almost, aren't they? Together, one or the other, running around Paris. I thought the Paris setting was absolutely beautiful. It really gave me a hankering to go back to Paris. And that's Paris in the 60s, which obviously we wouldn't have seen, and things are very different. There's a lot of nuns roaming around Paris in this film.
And a market entirely dedicated to stamps,
Yeah,
which is weird. Devastated stamps.
Devastating stamps, yeah. And also a little boy who, it's her friend Sylvie's little boy, Jean-Louis, who gets kidnapped partway through this. No one's bothered.
No one pays any attention.
No, they just sort of pop him on a bureau and go, come on then, let's go look for some money that we've all lost.
Yes.
And thankfully it's not meant to be menacing. No one's like, they get a gun out, but they don't threaten him. And they're quite, even the baddies are quite nice to this little boy. But the fact that the little boy is no longer with his mother and is in a Paris hotel room with the baddies, I was a little bit like, But then later on, he's with his mum in the park with Audrey Hepburn. She doesn't know where he is.
Yeah.
He's off at the stamp collecting market.
Different times.
There are hundreds of people around.
Yeah.
You can't see where he is. They're mistaking other children. And I'm getting like, how do you not know where your son is?
This is before Say No to Strangers and Stranger Danger.
I mean, he doesn't even have a mobile to be able to ring him. And he's just wandering around the park by himself. You're just sat there with your magazine, lady. It is very different times, isn't it? That was okay.
Yeah.
It was tiny.
And as we all know, from Taken, the risk of being kidnapped in Paris is not nothing.
But it looked beautiful. I mean, it really did look stunning. And the Parisian apartment was beautiful. Audrey Hepburn's wardrobe, as you've already alluded to, there's this amazing line in the credits, because it's one of those films where the credits come up at the beginning, which you always love, don't you?
Yeah.
You've got to love some opening credits. And it just says, it's just painted in, Miss Hepburn's wardrobe. It was like given by Givenchy or by Givenchy.
Absolutely,
The fact that they've got that statement on the third sort of slide as you're going through, just shows you what a big deal that was. Her wardrobe in this is absolutely superb. Every scene, there's a new outfit. There's some beautiful coats, absolutely stunning styling.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There's a beautiful pillbox hat that she wears. Her hair is there's a different hairdo every time as well. Now I was just looking to see, there's like, one of it is like the left hand side's over to the right and then it's tucked in at the back, and you know how I love her hair up. And most of the time, these days, when you're looking at clothing, sometimes it looks throwaway, unless you're in maybe a period drama or something like that. This is just beautifully cut fashion, and it's just stunning. It's absolutely beautiful to look at, but it doesn't take over the film, and it fits perfectly with her character.
Absolutely,
a woman of style.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing to look at this film, I think. One other thing in this film that's amazing to look at, I love the title sequence in this. It's produced by Maurice Binder, who does all the early James Bond title sequences.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. It's just
quite psychedelic.
It's the perfect sort of 60s animation. Yeah, I love it.
When you go back and watch it now,
Yeah.
because I can't remember much of it other than there were lots of wavy lines with colours.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm saying it's like psychedelic. Does it show you bits of the plot? Does it?
No, it's more just showing it's a mystery. It's lines turning into mazes and things like that. It kind of subliminally in your mind probably sets it up rather than...
I thought I was missing something there, but it was the lines that I was remembering.
Yeah. He did all the James Bond title sequences, I think, up to License to Kill. So yeah, he was quite prolific in that. And yeah, in the middle of them did Charade. So, can we give it a star rating?
I think we can give it a star rating, but I was a little bit worried about it to begin with, to be honest with you, when I was going through the film and I was racking up the stars in my head, because that first half, or there or thereabouts, wasn't quite working for me, and I was thinking, oh, is this like just a standard 3-star film? But I don't think it is. I think that the ending, the multiple twists, the performances, and the beautiful styling and the scenery, the direction as well, some really interesting shots.
Directed by Stanley Donen, who did Singing in the Rain and Seven Brides for Seven Brothers.
And actually some of the, there's one scene that's really grim, the death of one of the characters.
Death of Tex.
Oh, I mean, I think that now, you would think this would be like a U rating. So, you know, a lot of the films from that time are, they're re-rated, but that I think would get sort of almost like a PG/12. It might even be a 12, because you can see someone who's suffocated and you can see their face and you can see the mouth open. I found that really quite grim.
It's
I wasn't
PG.
expecting it. PG, okay. Interesting. But yeah, that second half and all the other things I've talked about, which are a positive, shoved it up to a 4-star for me.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it's a nice solid 4-star film.
Right. If that's the case, then we'll call it a day, and we'll do it another date night at some point.
We'll find another date night.
Where you'll find something that we can relate to Robin Hood.
That probably is the case. There's always some kind of Robin Hood link somewhere, isn't there?
Men in Tights.
Oh, I've not seen that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Right.
Right, thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks for joining us on Standalone Date Night.
See you later.
See you later. Before you go, just a reminder that you can subscribe to the Honeymoon Period podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcasts. You can join in the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search for The Honeymoon Pod. Finally, if you like this episode and you think someone else would too, please share it. See you next time.